All right. Hi, everyone. And thanks for being with us today. Thanks for taking time to learn a little bit more about Nucamp. This is going to be a webcast over YouTube. So we're going to be spending about an hour together, 30 minutes of presentation, and then 30 minutes of Q&A, which we'll go through using that chat window of your YouTube window. So while we present, Ludo and myself, feel free to just put some questions in, and then we can get started with the Q in about 30 minutes. Before that, let's just get started, and I'd like to give you an overview of Nucamp. And together with me today, my name is Karim Ludo. I'm the CEO of Nucamp. Together with me is Ludo Fourage. Ludo, and I'm having trouble here with my slides. Here we go. Ludo is the Chief Learning Officer of Nucamp. He'll be chiming in a little while when we talk more about the curriculum. We are both founders of Nucamp, and I want to start by just telling you a little bit about why we started this and what gets us excited about Nucamp. So many of you may have had a look at our website and are already a little familiar, but just for everyone's benefit, Nucamp is the only affordable, local, and flexible hybrid coding bootcamp available today. We are a bootcamp with a very strong social mission, and what we strive to do is really help everybody that's trying to shift careers to enter the digital economy. We do this by offering quality web development education to people who perhaps today can't afford traditional boot camps or simply are living in towns where there is no coding boot camp offering. And as we'll talk a little bit about more about this later, our aspiration is to really be able to bring this everywhere across the US. If you've been looking around at coding bootcamps for a little while, you probably noticed that today's offering is pretty limited. Basically, you have the opportunity to learn coding online, which is super flexible. It's actually pretty cheap. It may even be free in some cases. And it's flexible because you really can do it from anywhere on your own schedule, but it's really challenging. It is, very difficult to stay committed. It is also difficult to overcome some of the challenges of learning to code without any support from an instructor. So what we're seeing is there's a very low completion rates for online coding boot camps. And then at the other end of the spectrum, the only real alternative up to recently was traditional boot camps, which are full-time formats. So they're really good. I mean, there's no question that diving into a full-time program will get you the right level of skills. But the challenge is you got to stop working. There's oftentimes a selection to be admitted, and they're only present in large cities. And of course, they're pretty expensive. So if you can afford it, if you can spare the time, if you live where there's one available and you feel that's the way to do it, go ahead, absolutely. But we just found out pretty quickly through our studies that there are a lot of people that can't do that. And so that's really how Nucamp came about with our unique hybrid formats. So what we offer is the opportunity to continue to work while you learn, and work on your schedule during the week. However, staying on a weekly schedule. So you have structure, you have support to make sure you progress over time. You work with a small class, with a community. You have an instructor to support you, and you meet on weekends. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then, of course, what's really important is we are much, much more affordable. Today, our full stack program is at just a little above $1,600 in early bird pricing. So that really makes it a much lower risk option for many people. So we started in Washington State with 5 cities. We started actually with some of the suburbs of Seattle, and now we're present in Seattle proper as well. We have rolled out 50 boot camps, delivered more than 200 workshops. We have a lot of instructors that are active there. And so we really fine-tuned the model, the content, the way to have a solid student experience before launching in different states and across the country. And that's where we're at today. That's why we're talking to you today. We're excited to roll out the Nucamp model in many new cities. We have 7 new cities started in August. We're looking now at launching in probably 15 to 20 cities on September 9th. Hopefully more if word gets out faster and we have enough students to start classes. We're definitely planning to be in as many locations as possible because we're excited to just bring more affordable and more flexible options out there. A word about our offering. We're entirely focused on web development. So all of our efforts in terms of content and designing the curriculum focuses on the web development curriculum with a fundamental bootcamp of 4 weeks, which is really an introductory bootcamp for people who want to test things out and get a feel for what coding is about. And that's very easy to go through, including for complete beginners. And then from there, if as a student, you're confident that this is what you want to do, then you can embark on a front end or a full stack bootcamp, which are advanced bootcamps and which are really the bootcamps that will give you the skills to go for a junior level position, an entry level position as a web developer. And we'll talk a lot more about that in a minute. I want to say also a word about our locations. Oh, before we go there, let's talk a little bit about the format. So our format is pretty straightforward. If you go through the web development introduction bootcamp and then the full stack, it will be a total of 5 courses of 4 to 5 weeks each with a progression. So every week you complete your weekly assignment, it unlocks the next week, but you got to go through that. And then every week, of course, on Saturday, you actually meet with your instructor and you have that 4-hour workshop experience, which is central to our model. So during the week, the work is on your schedule. It's videos, exercises, working on your portfolio project. Ludo will tell you a little bit more about that. And then some additional exploration work, right? You're expected to spend time. It's a lot of work, and you need to be able to set aside 1 to 3 hours per day to go through the program. But you do have your instructor here to support you during the week, and of course also on Saturday. So Saturday is an important part of the program, and we want to make sure it's also a positive experience in terms of where you're going to be to meet your fellow classmates and your instructors. And so we work with co-working spaces that align with our social mission as much as possible. So for example, here, for those of you who are familiar, this is Impact Hub in Seattle. A lot of independent professionals work there. It's very sort of software oriented. And so it'll also give you a flavor of the kind of community you can be part of as a web developer. So it's both a great and cool place to work in, and we try to replicate that in every city we deliver our workshops. But it's also a way to connect you with that coding community that's present wherever you're living. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ludo to tell you a little bit more about the curriculum itself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Karim. So I'm Ludo Farage. I'm the Chief Learning Officer at Nucamp. And I want to give you a better understanding of what you will be learning as a student throughout our 3 bootcamp offerings. The first thing that I want to mention is our bootcamps are teaching web development And specifically, when we think about web development, we think about JavaScript. JavaScript is one language, but it's also a huge community of developers and what we call frameworks. So within JavaScript, really, we're focusing on what we call the React and React Native stack. For those of you who are familiar, it's called MERN. You can look it up. I will actually tell you what it is when you join. The other thing that's worth mentioning is really our 3 bootcamps are a collection of 5 different courses. If you think about the Web Development Fundamental Bootcamp, that is really the first module of our curriculum. And this first module is really there to give you the basics, the fundamentals, obviously, of web development. And that means really a good understanding of HTML5, a solid understanding of CSS, and then, of course, an in-depth introduction of JavaScript. We recommend for anyone who's new to development to start there. You really want to get that fundamental knowledge before moving on to front-end and full stack. It's not a requirement to take it. And in a way, we actually offer a test online where in 25 questions, you can figure out for yourself if you should take the beginner's bootcamp or if you are ready to sign up directly into front-end and full stack. So look up that test. It's on our website at nucamp.co/experience. It's in our FAQ. You'll find the link. Now, if I move on to the next 2 bootcamps, the front-end bootcamp and the full stack bootcamp, well, what you can see here is really one includes the other. So if you do full stack, you will actually do front-end plus what we call the back-end module that you can see on the right-hand side here. So sometimes students get a little bit confused. They're wondering, okay, do I need to sign up for front-end and full stack? No, you can either start with front-end, and then we actually see students wanting to continue on with full stack and just pay the difference in cost. Or you can just sign up directly to full stack and know that you will be doing everything that a front-end bootcamp will do. So if I start at the beginning, Bootstrap. Bootstrap was actually designed by Twitter to power their website. And they really wanted to build a website that will work for laptops or PCs or Mac, big screens, but as well with smaller screens, phones, tablets. And at the time, what needed was really to build a lot of code for laptops and a lot of code for mobile devices. And so what they did, they came up with what we call a responsive framework called Bootstrap that really allows you as a developer to write your code once and let it adjust by itself to the different sizes of screens. So that's pretty impressive, actually, and it's very rewarding as a student when you get into that to just realize how in the end it is easy to create what we call a responsive website. Now, Bootstrap has limitations, and the main limitation is it's really just about the look and feel and how things look on the page. It doesn't deal with the data. So meaning if you want to handle a form, if you want to handle customer data, if you want to handle product data, if you want to handle a shopping cart or anything really that needs to be dynamic based on data that is stored somewhere, Bootstrap is going to help you show that, but it's not going to help you connect to it and handle it. So obviously that's what React, the next module, is for. React was developed by Facebook, and it's actually taking over the JavaScript world. It's the #1 framework for the last 3 years. It's similar from other frameworks that you may have heard about, namely Angular, which is developed by Google, or Vue.js, which is developed by someone who used to be a Google employee. But really, those 3 frameworks are pretty much trying to accomplish the same tasks, which is really using JavaScript to handle complex application, to handle complex business logic. access the data, manipulate the data, and all that. What's interesting about React is you can actually leverage, and you will actually leverage what you've learned in Bootstrap, so that everything that needs to be dynamic and responsive for React will actually be done through Bootstrap. So that's a pretty good news. React really is also, I would say, the core of our curriculum. That's where you can expect to be the most challenged. That's where you can expect to spend many hours a day and a week. That's really when we get to the top of 3 hours a day for 6 weeks straight, so that you can really absorb that knowledge. The good news is once you're finished with React, the rest is relatively simpler. And so from React, we'll actually tell you about React Native, which is, what I like to say, doing a little bit of a magic trick. What React Native is doing is it's taking everything you've learned before on how to build a website that is good looking, responsive, dynamic, can connect to data, and then package that as a mobile application that you can then publish onto the Apple Store or Google Play Store. So pretty much you're taking all your code that you use to develop a website, and you're turning it into a mobile app that suddenly has access to GPS, camera, accelerometer. I mean, everything, all the hardware capabilities of a mobile device suddenly are available to your React Native app. That's the magic of it. It's the same code that you can actually then repackage. And from an end user standpoint, you will not know that you've just downloaded actually a website that was repackaged into a mobile app. So very powerful concept. And that will be the end of front end, meaning you will have really, at this time, explored all the different ways of showing an application or a website to a user. What you will want to do next, or not, is how do you then handle the server side, the backend side? Where are you going to put your data? What's going to be your web server who's going to serve that data? Where are you going to handle your users? How are users going to be authenticated? And so all of that really is done through that last module, where we teach you Node.js, which is the core framework for everything actually, Express, and MongoDB, which is a really well-known database engine. And that will really wrap up our curriculum. Now, and by the way, I've seen that there's a few questions. We'll get to that in a minute. The curriculum is great, but really, it's not just about learning stuff. It's really a lot about doing it. And so throughout the curriculum, you're going to work on what we call first a learning project. So that's going to be a project that we're going to really outline week by week, module by module. And what's unique, about our approach, we think, is it builds up. So it's not a series of tutorial where you do one thing and then you forget about it, you do another thing, and nothing is connected. It's really not that at all. It's a learning project throughout the curriculum that builds on top of itself every week to ultimately have a fully working website and mobile app with a fully working backend. So that's your learning project. But then on top of that, we help you to create your own project. And you're going to follow the same path. Now, some people, after working on their portfolio project with React, have a hard time stopping and doing it for React Native. And so you'll have an option to continue with your portfolio project there, or switch over to a React Native type of project. But the good news is you are going to work on your own portfolio project. We will recommend that you work as a group, but you can also work on it solo. Now, here's your bootcamp schedule. You see here, of course, August 5th, that date has passed. As Karim mentioned, we opened in 7 communities. The next start date for the web development fundamentals is going to be September 9th. You can go online in your community, register for it. We are seeking a minimum of 4 to 6 students to get started. So the minute we have 4 to 6 students, we're actually going to deliver the bootcamp in your community, which is great news. Something to really think about probably now is we're going to have 2 start dates for front-end and full stack bootcamp. The date that you're seeing here on this slide is October 7th. The next one is going to be January 27th, so pretty much 3 months later. So really think about what works best for your timeline, knowing that you have that 3 months gap. There's still seats available for October 7th. So our recommendation is really don't miss October 7th if that's the timeline that works for you, because that one is going to go fast, and then you'll have to wait 3 months afterwards. All right. Next, I mean, it's very easy for us to tell you everything good we think about Nucamp. We obviously are biased. You can check us out on Course Report, on SwitchUp. I actually think our Course Report score went up. I think it's 4.9 now. We're very proud of it. We're very proud of what students have to say about us. It's not just that we're affordable, it's the quality of the community, it's the quality of support that they get from our instructors. And then what we thought was, well, the best way probably to share that feedback from students is to actually share with you a short video that we have recorded in Marysville, one of the locations where we started in Washington. So let me actually play that video. It's a short video, 2 minutes. And so we'll be back right after that. And ask your questions online, by the way, because we'll be switching back to a Q&A right after the video. All right, there we go. Let's go.
I wanted to look at a career opportunity that would be lucrative. And Nucamp kind of popped up, and I liked it a lot more than the other ones. I liked that it was more flexible. I didn't have to quit my current job.
They're basically very student-friendly.
And our instructor is awesome, Minay, and she's just really helpful, really above and beyond.
She's very helpful, and every time when I have a question, I can ask her and she can respond. The careers basically has no end. You can grow and grow.
I was really excited. Yeah, in fact, I mean, if anything, I was wanting to do more.
But I really like the way it's been this hybrid learning process.
I love that. I love that it's during the week, because I wouldn't have been able to do it if I had to meet every single day. So I love that I can find childcare on Saturdays, and the rest of the week it's online. But yeah, sometimes I'm doing my homework and I get all excited. I'm like, this could be my life. So it's kind of cool.
All right. And we're back. Okay, so now's the time for a live Q&A. Karim and I are going to look at your questions.
Yep, and I got a head start on that, Ludo. So our first question, I think, to answer is going to go to you. It's a question basically from Dueta around, should I take the web development fundamentals first before taking the full stack program? How does that work? How do I know which one to take?
Yes, great question. So I mentioned earlier that it's not a requirement. It's strongly encouraged if you do not have the fundamental skills yet. So let me actually see if I can show you where to actually find the link that I mentioned. I've tried before to type in the link in YouTube, but it would not allow me. So let me actually show you on the website where you can find it. So if you go to FAQ, you should see, and scroll down. There we go. So do you have a standard test? So this 25 question test here is going to help you in about 20 to 30 minutes figure out if you're ready to sign up directly to front-end or full stack. We ask you to score 85% right answers or higher to really be confident that you can start straight away with front-end or full stack. If your score is lower than 85%, that means you should probably start with the 4 weeks fundamentals.
Okay. And then we have a question from Carlos, who is a military reservist. So thank you for your service. The question is around, hey, can I miss a Saturday because I have basically drill duty? And we have a lot of other situations where sometimes students are worried that they're going to skip one workshop, and what does that do to their progression? So we definitely don't recommend missing workshops, but if it is going to be just one workshop out of a class of 4 or 5 weeks, and you're committed to catch up, you're committed to doing the work on the rest of the weekend, it's probably manageable. And your instructor will be able to support you a little bit through that. But it does have to be exceptional. And if it is, then yes, it's definitely not a big issue. All right. And then a question from Travis on where do we meet on Saturdays? So again, we have different locations in different cities, and they're usually co-working spaces. That's the vast majority. So they're spaces that are designed for the kind of work you're going to be doing. Actually, some of them are really excited to host us. They've been looking at the opportunity to provide coding boot camps in their community. So you'll have a sort of working spaces that are designed for collaboration with right Wi-Fi access. It's usually sort of a nice environment. And the way you can find out exactly where that is just go to your community page on nucamp.co. And if the location is confirmed, then you'll see only one location there, and that's the location basically. So you know exactly where you're headed. In some cases, we're still working through defining or fine-tuning the location, and we have 2 to 3 options there. But it'll give you a good sense of where you're probably going to be, having your class. And then let's see. So yeah, next question from Rich is on, is there enough demand specifically in Philly to have class start on September 9th and then for the full stack in October? So it's a good, actually, general question. That, again, you can actually look at this yourself. I'm going to answer for Philly. For Philly right now, we have 1 registered, and we have probably over 20 people that are interested. So I would say it's pretty high likelihood that Philly is going to not start, but actually repeat in September. We're already running a class in Philly as we speak. So that's, it means that there's definitely demand there. But the way to check that, again, go to the community page. If you click on the specific bootcamp you're interested in, you'll see the little avatars that will tell you how many are registered. And a little secret here is that if it's a full line on that circle, it's a registered student. And then if it's a dotted line, it's somebody who's expressed interest but hasn't yet registered. So you can actually pretty much track where we're at in terms of registrations.
Yeah, and Karim, I will add to that in Philly, we have a total of 80 people who's expressed interest in what we do in Philadelphia. Which is
Okay, cool.
Pretty high number right now. So Philadelphia is looking good right now. So yeah, pretty high level of confidence that we'll be able to really continue our operations there.
All right, and then another question around a scheduling conflict and needing to leave. And is the remainder of this open house viewable later? The answer is yes, and we actually have other open houses that are already recorded. We'll make sure to send you the link, and you can watch us to help you get to sleep later on if you wish.
It will be at the same link actually that people are using right now. So this link will be where the recording will live as well. I'm guessing Holly probably so Duet probably isn't listening to this anymore. So when you listen to this, Duet, welcome back.
All right, and then next question is from Holly. Actually, a really good question. What is the percentage of students that receive a full-time job offer after finishing the course? So we do not publish actual job placement statistics at this point. This is something we'll maybe consider later down the road, but we find that it's first very difficult to track. And then what's unique about our program is people are already working full time, right? So it actually takes them quite a bit of time to transition to their new career. They could be, coming out of the boot camp and spending another 3 or 4 months perfecting their portfolio, getting more skills, and then actually applying for jobs. They could also be starting a bit of an independent web developer consulting activity. A lot of people do that on the side of their existing job. So it's not a clear cut, I do this full-time coding boot camp, and then right after that, I'm out of a job. I'm actually looking to get hired ASAP. But in any case, our commitment is really to give you the skills that are required to get a job. We also have an online program to help you sort of prepare your resume, your LinkedIn profile, sort of give you the basics of how to network. So we have some career guidance and sort of career support as part of the program as well. But at the end of the day, we have no admission testing, and we no filter, and we don't track then who is actually getting a job exactly when at this point in time. We do have great examples though. So if you want to point to real examples, I think Aaron is probably our best example, and his video is featured on our website. Aaron was with us. He was a long haul commercial driver, got into the boot camp, spent time actually perfecting his skills a little bit after that, got really excited about our mission through the boot camp, but also after the boot camp, and started to actually teach for Nucamp. And then right now, actually a few months ago, got a full-time job as a QA tester in a local software development company. So certainly the commitment is, if you go through the program and you're serious about it, and you put in the time and effort, and you actually go through, the skills and the resources, with focus and with really the will to absorb the knowledge, you're really in good shape to get a junior entry level position in web development. Ludo, you want to add to that? Because that's your domain, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we there's a ton of testimonials online from graduates from Coding Bootcamp, not just Nucamp, and the time that it takes varies, and it's also a lot based on how much you put into it. I would say average is 3 to 6 months, and it's a lot about doing the right things, meaning it's not just about applying online every day, right? It's not about doing a cold sending your resume and hoping that someone is going to get back to you. It's really a lot about getting into the local community of developers, building your network, making sure to reach out, seeking mentors. So it's really, and we help you with that through our program, but it's a diversity of strategies to get a new job. And it cannot just be, I've applied to 10 job opportunities online every day. It has to be a well thought out plan to execute and to really get into the industry. So yeah, I will just say that.
Yeah, I mean, just adding one more thing that I think is important, because that's what our students are telling us when they, talk about, hey, what does Nucamp bring to them in terms of helping them get a job? And the one thing I'd add is our instructors. Yeah. Our instructors are not, from academia. They're actually full-time software developers. That's actually part of our model, to make sure that we have people that are plugged into the industry and do their teaching just as a side gig, right? We don't want them to rely on doing only teaching. We want them to continue to be plugged in the real world of software development, keep their skills current, et cetera, and really teach at Nucamp to give back to their community. And so those are the right people to connect to. They know where to connect, what are the groups that are active. They actually also have contacts sometimes in the industry that they may be willing to share with you. So that's another really important sort of informal resource as you think about your next step.
Right.
We have, question on, switching locations. in the middle of a boot camp, we don't recommend it. The official answer is no. When you're committed to a boot camp, we want you to stay there. The reality is we try to be flexible. We want this to work for you. So if you're moving, if you've got to change for some reason, we'll usually make it work. Again, provided there's another boot camp that's available, there's some space left there, and it doesn't disrupt the class you're leaving, then yeah, sure, we'll help you make that transition. I'll take the opportunity here to mention as well that we understand that because you have a full-time job and other commitments, flexibility is important. So not just moving cities, but if you need to suspend your boot camp, for example, for a cycle, which is 5 weeks, will allow you to do that. There's a small fee that sort of covers our costs, which is actually $99. So it's not too bad, but you can put your boot camp on hold if for some reason you got a big thing going on at work or things like that. So as much as we can, we try to make it easy and flexible for you.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Karim, and I'm seeing the follow-up from Thora. If the bootcamp has not started yet, there is actually a simple way for you to then say, okay, I'm going to join Dallas because that one is starting, but the one I think you have the Plano is not starting. So actually, that mechanism is straightforward when you're in the middle of two towns and you're picking one or the other, and then one is starting but not the other. We have that situation in St. Paul and Minneapolis as well. So that one actually is pretty straightforward and easy. You can actually do it yourself when the time comes. So yeah, that's enabled there.
Hey, Holly, another question here on clarity. What will be learning to become? Are you going to be a web developer or a coder? What's the proper title? I'll give it a shot as the less technical person of the two here. Ludo can jump in, but essentially what you need to recognize is web development is the broader sort of software development that you can start with to get a foot in the digital industry, if you like, right? It's something that's sort of more practical. It's less sort of technical and sort of super complex. We're not really hard to teach you to be artificial intelligence expert or a data scientist overnight. Web development is more accessible, but it's also more marketable. I mean, there's a lot of demand out there, so it's not a niche sort of role, if you like. So long answer to say, the title is really web developer, which is a category of coding and the one that's more accessible for people who are transitioning.
Yeah, that's perfect. I will just add the word junior. When you finish the bootcamp, you will be a junior web developer, which really sets the expectations that there's still a lot that you will learn and that you have also a career path and a progression ahead of you. So you will be looking for a junior web developer position.
All right, we're catching up with the queue here. So have we missed any question here? I'm just taking a quick look.
I think we got it. I think you answered the previous one from Steven, support for networking or finding a job through Nucamp. I think we talked about the role of our instructors.
I think I did. All right, so we'll give you another minute or two if anybody has another question here. Oh, here we go. Is age a limiting factor in finding a junior position? I have a computer science degree, but I'm in my 40s and out of the industry for many years. 40, that's young. I'm gonna take offense here if you think you're not young. I'll give a shot at this one too, and Ludo, you can jump in. I mean, just a few facts. There's projected to be a shortage of over 1 million software development positions in the US within the next, I think, 3 years or so, and probably as many as 500,000 next year. So this is an industry where there is a huge supply issue, which is very favorable. So, it's no secret that age can be a challenge sometimes, but definitely not if you're in 40s, and definitely not if you have a computer science degree as a background, because that's a really strong foundation to get into a boot camp. But I would say that, as for many other positions, at the end of the day, it's, a lot about skills, which we will give you, and then a lot about your attitude, because software development is about teamwork, right? So your soft skills will be important as you interview. I really think that today it's probably one of the industries where age is probably less of an issue, just because of the shortage of sort of available profiles, but also just the simple fact that it's very, very much skill based, and then just your ability to work with other people in teams.
Great. I'll
yeah, take this one, please. That'd be great.
Yeah, Carlos one. Yeah. So Carlos, is there such a thing as remote web development? Absolutely. I'll actually say two things. Back in the 80s, there were regulations from the Bill Clinton administration to really develop and strengthen the partnership with India. And you saw actually the computer science and the web development industry really flourish in India because of that. And so if you think about remote web development, that was the foundations of that. And a lot of really US-based companies starting to work with India on having those web development projects being done remotely. So that's kind of a little bit of history. And that's also why now it's very common practice for employers to be seeking developers no matter where they live. If you go up to Upwork, which is a website for contractors offering the services, you'll find a ton of freelance developers offering their services. And we actually see our students being very interested in that approach of really staying in their community, but then offering their services to pretty much who wants to leverage their skills. So yeah, absolutely, there is such a thing as a remote web developer.
Another question from Holly. I think that's a good one for you as well, Ludo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Progress, right?
So
in your
there's two things here, Holly. Really, the point about being a junior developer and how you get to senior developer, and then the question about taking more courses. So the two are connected, but let me explain how. What's very particular to this industry and this job is that you're never done learning. And some people have a hard time wrapping their mind around it, because it's not like, I'll take the example of a truck driver. Once you learn how to drive a truck, you've learned it. There's nothing major that's going to change, and you'll always know how to drive the truck. It's really different when you learn to code or be a web developer, because the technology is evolving so fast that you always will want to stay on top of your game and learn how to do things. Now, even beyond just the point of the technology evolving, in the project that you're going to work on, I'll bet that you'll be asked to do or develop features and functionalities, and you will only know how to do 50% of those, because you haven't learned how to do the other 50% just yet. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means that the world of coding and web development is so large that you actually cannot learn everything about it. And so you learn, I will say, just in time. You struggle to find how to do it, and then you finally get to the solution. But you do that through learning all the time. And so now, if I connect back to your point, you're a junior developer because if you imagine the world of web development, maybe you're going to end up knowing 10% of it at the end of the bootcamp. It's going to be a great 10%, foundational 10%, but you're going to have to learn way more before becoming a senior developer. And then your ability to really commit to that, your ability to showcase that, yes, you know that you're going to have to learn more. You won't be frustrated through it. You will achieve results. Showing that those skills of always learning is what also going to get you to the senior position. So it's a little bit of a long answer, but that's something that's really fundamental and important if you're considering this job or this industry. You'll be never done learning. You'll always have to challenge yourself, and you'll always be asked to build features and functions and you will not know necessarily how to do them just right now, but you'll be able to learn how to do it and deliver on the outcome. So there you go.
Yeah, and actually, I want to connect this with why we have that sort of separate 4-week introductory boot camp. It's exactly to give you an opportunity to get a feel for what coding is about, not just the skills and the mechanics of it, but that whole intellectual process of, not finding the solution. How do you look for it? Do you enjoy researching to find that solution? Do you enjoy learning? Because if you're going to be in a job that requires learning day after day and month after month for 20, 30 years, then you better be enjoying it. And you'll see that a lot of instructors sometimes don't have the exact answer to a specific problem, but they're like, oh wow, that's really cool. That's something I'm not sure exactly how it can be done. But in a matter of a few minutes, if they're good, they'll come back with a really smart answer or 3 different ways of doing it after having worked through it, looked it up, researched a little bit of examples. So that's part of the whole experience, and pretty quickly if you enjoy this, which is why we think going through the initial boot camp will give you a good sort of feeling for, okay, I'm up for this, or hey, this was really interesting, spend 4 weeks on it, but I know for sure I don't want to do it going forward. And we want to be fair and honest with you about that.
Yeah, that's totally right. Robert has a question about JavaScript versus React. So let me give you a quick answer on that, Robert. We actually start to teach JavaScript in the Web Development Fundamentals Bootcamp, the 4 weeks bootcamp. Actually, 2 weeks of that is JavaScript. Then in Bootstrap, we also have an additional 2 weeks of JavaScript in the Bootstrap course. And then we move on to React. Now, what you should know is React is really JavaScript. It's hard to wrap your mind around it if you're not familiar with it just yet. But well, I will say that there's English, right? And then there's Shakespeare English. So if you want, JavaScript is English, React is Shakespeare JavaScript. It's really taking the language to a whole new different level to actually accomplish way more. So I hope that can make sense, that type of parallel. But really, React is JavaScript with so many other things built into it, but the core of it is still JavaScript. And so, yes, React is way more significant than JavaScript because of everything else. Like Shakespeare is a big deal. English is cool.
Well, we may have to rework that analogy a little bit, but I'm sure everybody gets the point. All right, so what happens if I register for a course, but the quota is not met to actually start the class? Oh, thanks for that question. So if there aren't enough students to start a class, what happens automatically is you will get rolled into the next starting class, which is 5 weeks later. Now, you will receive an email informing you of that. That's automated. So if that's what you want to do, you have nothing else to do, you're automatically registered for the next start. However, we understand that may not suit you at all. You may have other commitments for whatever reason. That's not something you want to do. You can immediately cancel. It's self-serve. You go online, you click on your profile and select your bootcamp, click on change, click on cancel, and you're immediately fully refunded, no questions asked. It's unfortunate that we're not able to commit ahead of time that the class will take place, but there's really no other way for us to offer our boot camps across the nation, and do that in so many locations, without having to manage a minimum requirement of students. We are also experimenting an alternative which works, I think, for people that feel they don't want to wait or are in locations where maybe even the next iteration there won't be enough students because it's not as big a demand there, which is to do a pure online, or I would say a remote session, which is very similar in structure. It's actually identical. So same structure, same content, same logic, but instead of going physically to your workshop location on Saturday morning, you're connecting with your dedicated instructor through video conference. So you have only one instructor that follows you during that class, same as for regular classes, but that instructor is going to be remote and actually is going to be in the state of Washington, because we usually commit our more experienced instructors to that. So we don't necessarily recommend this at this point. I think it's probably for most people a better experience to actually be physically present in that workshop location with other students and sort of connect locally. But we recognize as well that for some people, it's probably the only option. So we made that available recently, even though we're not advertising it too much.
Question on tuition plan, Karim, you may
Yeah, sure, I can take that. Yeah, so once I complete the intro course, do you require the entire amount paid in full for the full stack? No, there's payment plans for front end and full stack. It's 4 payments, I think, for an initial registration payment, and then 4 payments for the full stack, and then initial registrations and 3 payments for front end. And those are monthly payments, so they're not tied to the classes themselves. But you can, of course, look up your exact payment dates on your profile so you know exactly where you're at. And our policy at this point is, if at any point you drop out of the program because life changes, you have to leave, then your payment plan stops. And so we're not reimbursing what you've already paid, but what's remaining to pay, you do not have to pay. All right.
Yeah,
okay,
we have 7 more minutes.
To the top of the hour here, so yeah, let's see if we have one last questions, but otherwise we can probably start a wrap up here. So yeah, I think just thanks again for spending time with us today. I hope we answered most of the questions. This session will be recorded and available. We simply want to encourage you to express interest in the bootcamp by clicking on interested. So we get a feel for the locations that are likely to start soon. Think about your timing, because again, the full stack will start in October. And so if you're sort of committed, registering early has only benefits because you will benefit from the early bird pricing, which is going to end for the web development session in September. It's going to end on August 24th. So you have about a little over a week here to benefit from that. And then there's also a little bit more time for the next one. But register early. At the end of the day, if you cancel for some reason before, then there's no downside. You have to cancel just I think up to, I guess it's 2 weeks before. And then in any case, if you're rolled over and that's because of us and you cancel after that, you're fully refunded. So not a lot of downside there. And then, yeah, we just encourage you to share in your community our presence and our offerings, so we're able to just bring more students and get started in your community. So with that, Ludo, anything else that we forgot before we wrap up?
No, that's pretty much it. If you have any additional questions, shoot us an email at info@nucamp.co. We also have a chat, which is not a bot. It's an actual human being at the end of the chat on our website, so you can actually talk to us real time as well. Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing you in our communities or in your community.
All right, well, thanks everyone, and have a great day.
Oh, and one thing we always forget, subscribe to our channel. We're getting feedback from our instructors that we always forget to ask that at the end. So please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.
And share us on Facebook. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.